Hey everybody, Wardrobe here, talking about the game over for Canadian Crucible. Um, yeah, so the Germans almost took their last town. All I needed to roll was a 12. So not very likely, but it was possible. And that was someone asked, I was watching our live stream ask, and like at the time I would have said I said it was really hard and it was a challenge, but it is possible to do. And McMurray, who played off with us, and you'll see his kind of commentary at the end of this one, I have an impressive dead pile for both sides compared to his. We'll show that in just a minute. But I did take the town and I held it. The Canadians were starting to make some counterattacks here just because they weren't going to lose. Although, what's interesting is I did weaken this town because I thought there was no way they could take it. So that was interesting. That might have been, I was close to having a bad move there as a Canadian. The Canadians did also go down here to try to block a supply, and then they got wiped out the next turn, which was also interesting. Um, but that guy, he could have made a difference in one of these counterattacks. I was trying to retake this town, the left-hand town of Puto, which I finally took. But I don't think that changed from my last video. Really, I just was trying to blast away here, and I kept getting DG'd, the Germans, so they couldn't hit with their artillery up to these guys. And I had some pretty impressive attacks. I'd say my mortars and stuff were pretty effective. I think I had maybe 3 kills with the mortars. I also didn't roll anything higher than a 9 on my combat rolls, I don't think. Crazy. Anyway, pretty fun. It's a slog, and we were talking about how challenging that would be if you had the whole map out. But all you have to do, I think, is just take them in little battles and kind of just approach them, one by one. And also how to know what terrain is below these. I would play it again. Next, I think we're going to play Villers Bocage, which is south of here, covered up by all this paper. And so let's look at the dead pile. Let me pause. Yeah. So you'll see McMurray's pile. He has 2 Germans, a lot of reduced, and a number of Canadian, but less. But you'll see mine's almost even here. But it's fascinating. You see, we get the same result, kind of ultimately. We didn't count steps lost or anything like that. But so I would definitely, well, again, I would try to take Nori as quick as I can and surround it and cut guys off. But then I might thin out, and again, so I kind of would do the same attack, but I might try to take this town as opposed to Putot as much and get around them. So really my goal would be more to get around. Because if you can block off their supply, this is where they get a lot of the reinforcements. And I don't know what the rule is in Day of Days about reinforcements in Bastogne. It was within 10 hexes. But I'd have to look here. It might only be that because you're simulating them coming off the board, right, as opposed to, or off this real map, as opposed to just some imaginary entry point. So, but, and you'll see that McMurray did that too. He had this surrounded. But yeah, I think I might spend and maybe focus a little bit more on my stronger units on these towns first to do that. Going around this way is going to be tough because all you have is access over one bridge. You don't have most of my units have high movement, so they can't cross rivers at all, no matter the size of the river. So that's what I do differently. So let's go listen to McMurray's version of his game, and then I want to show you the TCS map compared to the Day of Days map.
So yeah, if I were doing this again, what I wound up doing was I took Putot. Right. So I took Putot right here, like the first
turn.
Turn. And then I kind of ignored this entire western area. If you look, you see I've got a German company right here, keeping a Canadian company that was bottled up in Bruay the entire time. They just are sitting there staring at each other. Then it took me a minute to get Nori-Abassin or Nori-Abassin, whatever it is, but I did capture it. And then I just had a bunch of forces over to the east here, kind of deployed along this bridge, just holding the Germans back, or holding the Canadians back, like, don't come over here. And then they wrapped around this side to try and I was going to try and get across this bridge, but That's pointless. You aren't going to get across the river. You're not going to attack across the bridge. It's a terrible idea. You're attacking at half. You need all your artillery to be pounding these couple, town hexes. Yep. So you can't have artillery to spare here. Had all of these. There were probably almost a battalion and a half of Panzer Grenadiers, honestly, down here most of the game that I just recently fed in up here. Had they either come up here and tried to sever this way or driven down from the west going east, that probably would have done a whole lot. I tried driving east to west or west to east here on the north end of the board to sever the entire Canadian, pocket that I created here. But that was too much to try and bite off. Just surrounding this town probably would have been a better idea, because if you're beating up units in here, then those little infantry units aren't going to be able to move through 2 zones of control to get into Brettville.
Yep.
Right? Because they're going to be getting beat up here as well.
Okay.
And then you can also really concentrate. You only have 3 artillery points and then minor stuff. So then you can really concentrate on those 2. Again, because I think I took Noray-Abbassant, not the first turn, not the second turn, but I had it surrounded, and it was out of supply, and it was DG'd, and it took like a turn or 2 of attacking, and then it was gone.
Yep.
And so again, instead of them moving those forces east, I would have swung them around to the west. But
all right, so everybody, here's the map. I really should learn how to pronounce these towns, but I apologize to all my French viewers, which is probably 2. So let's see here. Saint-Manvieu, Nory-en-Besson, Brettville, Puteaux, Bruay, Le Hamel, La Vie, something, and then Rotz, I think. So there's the map, and you can see it there. And so these are 700 meters. I should have looked up what the TCS scale is per hex. But now I'm just gonna, okay, so here's the TCS map. And I'll zoom in here, but here's Brettville, Nory-en-Besson, Saint-Manvieu, La Village, Puteaux, and Bruay. This is when I wish I had a better, so there's Brettville, but I'm gonna take you off the stand here and we're gonna go look at the map close up. All right, everybody, so there's Brettville, Puteaux. You can see it's got a road, the village, the railroad. That map is oriented a little bit like that, turned a little bit. So let's go over here. So there's the view, and there's the railroad. But let's zoom into Brettville, kind of just a little bit more details here. The road lines. Now, it's interesting, I noticed as I was talking to McMurray about this map, the bocage is a much smaller factor on here. So it just tells me that maybe it didn't have as much impact, because it is light bocage on the Day of Days map. Then you go over here on the road. So McMurray and I had to take this town, Brettville, and Nory-en-Besson. I'm going to change perspective here, and I want to tell you a real quick story about someone that was watching our game. So we had someone watching, Mark K, watching our video tonight, and his dad served in the B Company of the Regina Rifles. And he said he was stationed south of the railroad, so he could have been anywhere in here or here as the Germans pressed on, and a German tank went within 3 feet of him as a night attack, I believe. And pretty cool having him on there. But that was pretty cool, having that person there that could kind of show us that history. And so just to show you on this map where that is. So he said, as he was watching the map, he said it was like somewhere around here, south of the railroad. So you can see there's a little bit of difference in the way it's laid out there. But that's cool. So anyway, pretty awesome seeing that at that scale and seeing the details. It was giving McMurray ideas for a game of Rommel or something in 6 mil, because it is pretty cool. You can see the details there. So, all right, fun game, and had a good time. And thanks all for watching, and we'll see you at the next game. See ya. Thank you again to Mark K for watching the video with McMurray and I, but also for reaching out about his dad, Rifleman Mark K. Sr., regimental number L27928, B Company, Royal Regina Rifles out of Canada. And there's a picture of him you saw in the 40s, and then in 1985, He went for the celebration of VE Day, and you can see him at the Nijmegen Bridge that Regina Rifles held from November of 44 to February of 45. And then here he is at the grave of a fellow Regina Rifleman. So thank you to Mark for sharing that great history. And it really, again, this is one of the reasons we play these games, is to remember the history. And it's great to hear personal stories like this. So thanks.